imagine doing everything right for, 4 solid years. You get a 4.0 GPA, you join all the right extracurricular clubs, and you format your resume using the exact template your University Career Center provided.
Right, the golden standard.
Exactly. And you send it out into the void, and then, like, a $20 a month AI software just tosses your application into the digital trash in 0.3 seconds.
It's just a brutal awakening. We are looking at a cohort that followed a highly specific set of instructions, only to arrive at the finish line and discover, well, the race they were training for no longer exists.
Yeah, that is the stark, unvarnished reality for the graduating class of 2026. So, okay, let's unpack this, because the entry-level job market is undergoing a seismic structural transformation right now.
There really is.
And the traditional advice, that staircase model where you get a degree, grab the bottom handrail of a corporate job, and just climb step by step, that is practically obsolete in several major sectors.
Completely obsolete.
So our mission today is to cut through the panic and look at the actual mechanics of what is happening. We have a massive stack of sources to go through for this deep dive.
Oh, yeah. We've got Harvard research, hard employment data from the IE spectrum, and real-world hiring case studies.
Right, from firms like McKinsey and Signal Fire. So if you were a student staring down graduation, a parent watching your child navigate this, or just someone fascinated by how artificial intelligence is rewriting macroeconomics, this deep dive is custom tailored for you.
Absolutely. We're going to map out exactly how demonstrated human capabilities have become the new currency of the workforce.
And to be clear right up front, this is not a doomsday scenario. It's really just a puzzle. Once you understand the new mechanics of the board, you can actually play the game.
Yeah, and playing the game requires understanding the data first. The numbers coming out of the IE Spectrum's Top Tech 2026 report are painting a very specific picture of what we might call the Great Rebalance.
The National Association of Colleges and Employers and ASE, they track employer sentiment, right?
They do, yes. And right now, employer pessimism regarding college graduates is at its highest point since 2020.
Wow. But if half the employers still say the market is good, the real story isn't necessarily the absolute number, but the velocity of that downward trend, isn't it?
Exactly. It's a trajectory. When pessimism spikes outside of a traditional recessionary environment, meaning, the broader economy isn't crashing, it suggests a localized structural failure.
Okay, wait, let's define the difference there, because I think that is crucial for our listeners.
Yeah.
Structural shift versus cyclical blip.
Yeah, so a cyclical economic event is temporary. Interest rates go up, consumer spending drops, so a company just freezes hiring for a year.
Right, they fully intend to hire those people back when the economy recovers.
Exactly. But a structural shift means the fundamental architecture of the business has changed. When a company stops hiring for a role because the work itself has been automated or redesigned, well, that job is never coming back.
And that structural shift is exactly what the Signal Fire report captured. They analyzed the 15 biggest tech firms, the absolute titans of the industry.
The numbers there are staggering.
They really are. Between 2023 and 2024, entry-level hiring at those specific firms dropped by a staggering 25%.
1 in 4.
1 in 4 entry-level tech jobs just evaporated in a 12-month window. If you walk into one of those headquarters, an entire floor of junior employees essentially just doesn't exist anymore.
It's just wild to visualize. And the CNBC analysis of this phenomenon zeroed in on a highly vulnerable group. We were talking about the graduating classes of 2024, 2025, and 2026.
Right, because they are hitting the job market in the exact epicenter of this structural transition.
Yeah. What's fascinating here is the psychology of this specific cohort. They are experiencing severe whiplash. They spent 4 to 6 years optimizing for the 2019 job market, and they are graduating into the 2026 reality.
It's like, are these new graduates essentially the middle children of the AI revolution? Because the old rules don't work for them, but the new rules haven't been fully formulated, standardized, and published in the university handbook yet.
That middle children concept captures the timeline perfectly. They are caught in this weird limbo. And the reason this specific 3-year window is so uniquely chaotic comes down to the adoption curve of generative AI.
Walk us through that curve.
Sure. So late 2022 and 2023, that was the awareness phase. ChatGPT launched and everyone just kind of played with it.
Right, writing funny poems and stuff.
Exactly. But by 2024 and 2025, companies entered the aggressive implementation phase. They started actually embedding these tools into their daily workflows, which which immediately altered their hiring pipelines.
But large universities operate on a slow, bureaucratic 4-year cycle.
Right. They simply cannot pivot their entire curriculum in 18 months.
So corporate efficiency is moving at light speed, and academic evolution is moving at the speed of a glacier.
Exactly.
And if you are caught in that crossfire, you can't just sit in the career counselor's office and wait for an updated map. I mean, you have to draw it yourself.
You really do.
But to survive this, we have to deeply understand exactly what is eating these entry-level roles. This leads directly into the tectonic shift of AI automation.
Yeah, or to put it another way, what happens when the corporate training wheels get automated?
Let's get into that, because we have to move past the vague headlines about AI taking jobs and look at the granular mechanical tasks that are being offloaded to large language models, or LLMs.
Right. The entry-level tasks vanishing fastest are highly specific. We're talking about writing first drafts of internal reports, summarizing 50-page documents, basic financial modeling, and data cleaning.
Let's isolate one of those.
Oh.
Data cleaning. Because for anyone who hasn't worked in a corporate entry-level role, data cleaning sounds like, I don't know, digital janitorial work.
Yeah, it does.
But it was a massive part of a junior analyst's week. It meant taking thousands of rows of messy spreadsheet data, finding the formatting errors, standardizing the terms, and making it readable for the senior analysts.
And that could take a human 3 entire days.
Exactly. But an LLM can write a Python script and execute that cleanup in about 40 seconds.
Hugo Mallon from Kelly Services was quoted in our sources calling this a tectonic shift. He makes the point that AI agents aren't sitting at a desk replacing a worker named John one-to-one.
Right.
It is a massive realignment of which jobs are actually needed. The defining characteristic of the disappearing roles is that they consist strictly of structured, repetitive, cognitive tasks.
If a task requires taking existing information, applying a rigid set of rules to it, and producing a highly predictable output, well, you're competing directly with an algorithm designed specifically for that function.
But historically, making a 22-year-old summarize meeting notes or clean data wasn't just to torture them. Those tasks served a vital, hidden purpose.
They were the corporate training wheels.
Exactly. They were never just busy work. No one handed a massive, high-stakes strategic project to a fresh graduate. You gave them the mundane work.
Because through that mundane work, they absorbed the company culture by osmosis.
Right. By summarizing the meeting notes, they learned the company jargon, they figured out how the marketing department fought with the legal department, and they slowly understood what a good report looks like from the ground up.
It was a low-risk, subsidized education in how the business operated.
Yeah, and if a machine does this in seconds, the traditional model of an employee starting with routine work and graduating to complexity is entirely broken. The company isn't going to pay a human to spend 3 days on a summary purely for the sake of their education.
The business imperative for efficiency is just totally destroying the traditional mentorship model.
Which creates a massive talent pipeline problem for the companies themselves. I mean, they still need senior leaders, but they are eliminating the very roles that historically built those leaders.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. Think about the mechanics of riding a bike. If the training wheels are gone, you can't just throw a graduate onto a financial unicycle and expect them to juggle.
You really can't.
So if the routine, foundational work is handled by the machine, the human employee has to jump straight into high-level analytical thinking, creative problem-solving, and managing interpersonal friction from day one.
The baseline expectation has just moved permanently upward. You are no longer hired to be the mechanism of production. You are hired to manage the machine, doing the production, and then apply complex, critical human thought to the output.
It is incredibly ironic. The exact tasks that universities optimize for, basic drafting, formatting, strict adherence to a grading rubric, repetitive cognitive obedience.
The whole syllabus model.
Yeah, those are now the absolute worst things to put on a resume.
Oh.
Because if your defining professional trait is that you are excellent at following rigid instructions to produce a predictable output, you are essentially wearing a neon sign that says you are replaceable by software.
It fundamentally changes what a hiring manager is scanning for today. They don't want a human who acts like a slow computer. They want someone who operates on a plane entirely above the computation.
And if the old entry-level tasks are dead, what are companies actually looking for when they review a resume today? This takes us to the total paradigm shift in employer expectations, the battle of GPA versus demonstrated capability.
Yes. The Endless Job Outlook survey for 2026 illustrates this perfectly. When you contrast traditional metrics with the new reality, it's wild. Employers are ranking industry experience and demonstrated proficiencies far above a traditional GPA.
We are witnessing the death of the GPA as the primary signaling tool.
We really are.
For decades, a 4.0 was the ultimate proxy for quality. It signaled intelligence, compliance, work ethic. But the environment has fundamentally shifted. The Stanford AI Index points out that 78% of organizations already use AI in some capacity.
The future isn't coming, it's here. It is currently installed on the company server.
And Microsoft's research supports that completely. They found that 82% of leaders say employees need entirely new skills to survive this transition. And those new skills are not just the technical capacity to type a prompt into an interface.
No, the Microsoft research zeroes in on judgment. It's the human judgment to know when to trust the AI's output, when to override it, and how to add unique human value on top of it.
Right.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the question is no longer, will you work with AI? That is totally assumed. The real question is, what uniquely human value do you bring that the AI cannot?
Let's bring in the McKinsey case study because this is where the puzzle gets super clear. We established earlier that the tech sector dropped entry-level hiring by 25%. But McKinsey, a top-tier global consulting firm, they actually increased their 2026 North American entry-level hiring by 12%.
They are aggressively hiring, but they aren't hiring the old profile. They want young consultants who can innovate with AI.
Wait, I need to point out a massive contradiction here.
Go for it.
So AI is destroying entry-level jobs, but McKinsey is using AI as a reason to hire more entry-level people. It sounds like AI isn't closing the door, it's just changing the password.
That is a perfect way to phrase it. They view AI as a force multiplier, not a replacement for their core product. Their core product is strategic advice, so they want superpowered consultants who possess what they define as hybrid skills.
Let's dissect those hybrid skills. What is the actual formula McKinsey is looking for?
The formula has 3 pillars. First, technical competence. Second, business acumen. And third, and most importantly, human judgment.
Okay, break those down.
Sure. Technical competence means you comfortably integrate AI tools into your daily workflow. It is less about being a prompt engineer and more about using it to accelerate your baseline output. Business acumen is understanding how a company generates revenue.
And the human judgment piece.
That means you have to look at a pristine, beautifully formatted AI analysis, spot the hidden logical gaps or the hallucinations, and course correct.
I want to pause on the word hallucination for a second, just to ensure everyone understands the mechanics of that. Because when an AI hallucinates, it doesn't mean it's seeing ghosts.
No, not at all.
It means the large language model, which is essentially just predicting the next most likely word based on its training data strings together a sentence that sounds incredibly confident, grammatically perfect, and entirely factually incorrect.
Exactly. It will invent a fake court case or a fake financial metric and present it as absolute truth.
And if a junior consultant blindly copies that hallucination into a client presentation, it is disastrous.
Precisely. The human judgment pillar requires the candidate to act as an editor and a skeptic, not just a conveyor belt for the machine's output.
But our sources emphasize that students need to know how to integrate AI tools into their daily workflows right now to show employers this technical proficiency. How does a student actually do this? You can't just slap ChatGPT onto your resume under Microsoft Excel.
No, listing the tool is totally useless. You have to explain the mechanism of how it amplifies your specific work. Imagine a student writing a major research paper. The unethical new way is asking the AI to just write the final paper.
Right.
But the hybrid skill way, the way you explain in an interview, is highly specific. You tell the hiring manager, I used an AI tool to synthesize 50 academic papers into a literature review matrix in under 2 hours.
And for those not living in academia, a literature review matrix is basically a giant spreadsheet that compares the methodologies and findings of dozens of different studies so you can see all the data at a glance.
Right. It's an organizational nightmare for a human. But once the AI builds that matrix, the student uses their human judgment to look at it, spot a gap in the existing research that no one has covered, and formulate a totally novel hypothesis.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, in an interview, you lay that process out. You say, I automated the data aggregation, which eliminated 40 hours of friction and allowed me to spend 90% of my time on high-level strategic analysis. That proves you are an AI manager, not just a prompter.
You are validating the output, fixing the errors, and elevating the product. But I want to press you on something. You mentioned earlier that a 4.0 GPA might actually be a red flag if it isn't backed by applied skills. Why would perfection be a red flag?
Because a pristine GPA without any real-world experience suggests a candidate who has only ever mastered a closed system.
A closed system.
Yeah.
Exactly.
A university classroom is the ultimate closed system. The professor gives you a syllabus, you memorize the parameters, you take a test with predetermined right and wrong answers, and you receive a grade. It is safe, clean, and totally predictable.
And an AI thrives in a closed system.
Exactly. It can pass the bar exam, it can pass medical boards.
But the real business world is an open system. It is chaotic, the parameters change daily, the client lies to you, the data is incomplete, and there's rarely one perfect answer.
Exactly. If I'm an employer, I don't need a human who is an expert at memorizing closed systems. I need a human who can navigate the ambiguity of an open system. Employers want proof that you can operate when the syllabus is taken away.
Okay, this brings us to a massive practical problem for the listener. Knowing that employers want demonstrated hybrid skills and problem solving, how does a 21-year-old student actually acquire and prove those skills without a traditional entry-level job to teach them?
It's the ultimate catch-22.
Right. But the sources provide a roadmap with 3 distinct pathways. Let's dig into pathway 1, the apprenticeship model.
Our sources pull from Mike Roberts, who founded Creating Coding Careers. He articulates the massive gap between academic theory and industry reality. Traditional degrees offer theoretical knowledge but lack real-world team-building experience.
Right. You can sit in a lecture hall and learn the elegant theory of software architecture, but the professor isn't going to teach you what to do when your senior developer stubbornly refuses to document their code.
Or when the client changes the entire scope of the project 3 days before launch, those are human friction points. Apprenticeship models are designed to plunge you directly into that human friction. They provide structured, on-the-job, mentored learning. And this applies way beyond coding. It applies to marketing, healthcare administration, and business strategy.
Our outline tasks us with detailing a step-by-step conceptual plan for transitioning from classroom theory to apprenticeship learning. What's the mechanism for making that jump?
It requires a deliberate 4-step phase shift. Step 1 is radical mindset recalibration. You have to acknowledge that your degree is not the finish line. It is merely the vocabulary lesson. You are learning the words so you can eventually go have the actual conversation.
So recognizing the limits of theoretical study, what is step 2?
Step 2 is actively seeking collaborative, friction-heavy environments. Solo studying no longer moves the needle. You have to hunt for co-ops, guided mentorships, or university-sponsored consulting projects for local small businesses. You must place yourself in a scenario where your success is entirely dependent on communicating with other human beings.
Building alongside a team. And step 3?
Step 3 is enforcing the 80-20 application rule. This is how you balance academic theory with real-world work experience. The trap many students fall into is waiting until they graduate to apply what they learn. The 80-20 rule means that for every piece of theory you learn, you spend 20% of your energy finding a practical application for it immediately.
Give me a tangible scenario of that 80-20 rule in action.
Sure. If you are taking a course on macroeconomics, you don't just ace the written exam and move on. You join the university investment club, you analyze the impact of current interest rates using the theory from class, and you stand up in front of 20 peers and pitch a real portfolio strategy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Or if you take a marketing class, you don't just write a paper on SEO, you go to a local bakery, offer to optimize their website for free, and track the actual foot traffic. If formal apprenticeships aren't available, you construct your own micro-apprenticeships.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? It means you have to stop viewing the classroom as the final destination and start viewing it as just the glossary for the actual work.
Yeah.
But what is step 4 of that plan?
Step 4 is leveraging that experience as a market signal. This explains exactly why apprenticeships provide infinitely better job market signals than degrees alone. The hiring process is fundamentally an exercise in risk mitigation.
Because hiring a graduate whose only proof of competence is a piece of paper from a closed academic system is a massive financial risk.
Exactly. But hiring someone who has spent 6 months in an apprenticeship, someone who has proven they can navigate office dynamics, communicate under pressure, and apply theory to messy real-world variables, that person is a known entity. The risk drops to near zero.
But let's look at the reality of the market. What if you can't land an official paid apprenticeship right away? The competition is fierce. How do you prove to an employer that you possess these hybrid skills?
You have to show them the receipts.
Show the receipts. Enter Pathway 2, portfolio over resume, and showcasing the human edge.
To understand the necessity of the portfolio, we first have to recognize the complete death of the traditional cover letter.
Oh, totally.
A few years ago, a beautifully written, perfectly tailored cover letter was a strong differentiator. Today, an applicant can feed a job description into an AI and generate a perfect cover letter in 30 seconds.
Right, so it's no longer a differentiator. When perfection becomes instantly commoditized, it loses all signaling value. The resume used to be the whole movie, but now it's just the ticket to get in the theater.
Yes, and the evidence-based portfolio is the actual feature film. The evidence-based portfolio is how you violently cut through the noise of AI-generated applications. You must showcase real challenges you have completed, particularly using platforms like PitchSuccess.
Our outline tasks us with listing 3 specific project types that fundamentally prove problem-solving abilities to potential employers. Let's break these down mechanically. What is project type number 1?
Project type number 1 is video presentations.
Why video? Why isn't a beautifully formatted PDF report enough?
Because an AI can write your script, format your slides, and generate your data visualizations. But an AI cannot stand in front of a camera and deliver that script with authentic human nuance.
Ah, right.
A video of you presenting a complex concept proves multiple overlapping skills simultaneously. It proves you can synthesize dense information, communicate effectively, and perform under the pressure of observation. It is a direct demonstration of interpersonal communication.
That makes perfect sense. You are forcing the employer to see the human being. What is project type number 2?
Project type number 2 is led projects, and the operative word there is led.
Not just participated in.
Exactly. Being a passive participant proves very little. A led project proves you can manage human dynamics, navigate team conflict, and see a concept through to execution. An LLM cannot manage human egos or de-escalate a fight between a designer and an engineer.
Proving you've steered a group through friction is pure gold. And project type number 3.
Completed real-world challenges, particularly those utilizing AI-powered feedback loops, like the ones offered on PitchSuccess.
Unpack the mechanics of how that actually works.
This is about proving your adaptability velocity. On a platform like PitchSuccess, a student might upload a pitch video. The AI analyzes it and flags that the pacing was too fast or the logical transition was weak.
So the AI acts as an objective, instant mentor.
Yes, but the value to the employer isn't your first draft. The value is what you do next. You take that critique, iterate on the project, and submit a vastly improved version. That proves your ability to take critique, iterate, and solve complex problems.
Okay, so we have the 3 project types: video presentations, led projects, and iterative feedback challenges. But the outline asks us to provide a comprehensive checklist for students to build this portfolio and truly highlight their human capabilities over just a standard resume. What's the checklist?
Here is your mechanical checklist. Step 1, ruthless curation over volume. Select exactly 3 to 5 artifacts that showcase different facets of your hybrid skills.
Quality over quantity. Step 2.
Step 2 is contextualizing the messy middle. Employers know the real world isn't perfect. For every project, you must write a short narrative detailing the biggest obstacle you hit, a failed hypothesis, a team dispute, and the specific steps you took to overcome it.
3.
Step 3 is highlighting the human impact. Did your project save the team 10 hours a week? Did you resolve a conflict? Quantify the human element. And step 4 is formatting for frictionless viewing. If a hiring manager hits a broken link or a confused layout, they will close the tab in 2 seconds.
Let's zoom in heavily on step 2, contextualizing the messy middle. Because our focus points ask us to outline a narrative arc for showcasing growth from student projects to professional roles.
The narrative arc is the secret engine of a great portfolio. It shouldn't just be a trophy case, it's a story of growth. The structure should move from raw student to adaptable professional. You purposefully start the portfolio by showing an early project where you struggled.
You deliberately show a failure.
Yes, but you immediately follow it with the feedback you received, the new mental models you adopted, and a subsequent project where you applied those new models to achieve success. You are explicitly telling the hiring manager, I am not a finished product, but my rate of learning and adaptation is exceptionally steep.
If AI is constantly updating its parameters, a human has to prove they are constantly updating theirs.
Yeah.
But I want to challenge this entire portfolio concept.
Okay.
If I am an exhausted hiring manager, reading a resume is fast. I scan the GPA, the internships, 30 seconds. Watching video presentations and reviewing project portfolios takes time. Are employers actually looking at these?
It is a vital question. The mechanical reality of the hiring funnel is this. The hiring manager will not look at your portfolio as step one. The initial 30-second screen is increasingly being conducted by AI filtering software anyway.
So the AI is scanning the resumes to find the key words.
Right. And once you survive that automated cull, you land in a pool of 10 or 15 candidates who all look virtually identical on paper. When the human hiring manager is trying to decide which 3 candidates to bring in for an interview, that is when they click the portfolio link. The portfolio is not the introduction, it is the tiebreaker.
And when entry-level hiring drops by 25%, every single job application is a tiebreaker scenario.
Exactly.
That is sobering. And executing these complex projects, designing a narrative arc, it requires a specific type of drive. It requires you to act less like an employee waiting for instructions and more like a founder, which transitions us directly into Pathway 3, the entrepreneurial mindset.
This mindset is arguably your strongest armor against obsolescence. The World Economic Forum, the WEF, released their core skills taxonomy for 2030. At the absolute top of the list are entrepreneurial skills: risk-taking, complex decision-making, and strategic vision.
Okay, we need to be very careful with the word entrepreneur here. It's often a loaded word that scares people who just want a stable W-2 corporate job. We have to clarify that this isn't about incorporating an LLC.
It is entirely divorced from starting a business. An entrepreneurial mindset is a psychological framework. It means treating your own career and your daily tasks like a startup that you are managing.
So how do you actually highlight how to demonstrate that entrepreneurial thinking and decision-making during the hiring process? If I am interviewing for a standard corporate job, how do I prove this?
You demonstrate it by showing how you handle ambiguity. In the interview, you don't talk about how well you followed instructions. You detail a scenario where you identified an opportunity, gathered incomplete data, iterated quickly, and pushed a solution through. You highlight your ability to make decisions when the rules aren't clearly defined.
Our sources introduce the PitchSuccess Wealth Trap track to illustrate this. It explicitly goes beyond standard financial literacy to build judgment, situational awareness, and professional resilience.
Right. An entrepreneurial mindset is the ultimate defense against AI. A machine can optimize an existing process, but it cannot take a calculated human risk or formulate a strategic vision based on human nuance.
We've laid out the data, the employer demands, and the 3 pathways. But how do the people surrounding the student and the students themselves actually put this into practice today? This brings us to the final section, the playbook for parents, counselors, and students.
This is where the macroeconomic data collides with the dinner table.
Let's start with the parents. The sources say parents must stop optimizing solely for admissions metrics like GPAs and test scores. But we need to suggest ways parents can guide their children toward building real-world problem-solving skills instead.
It requires a fundamental shift in dinner table conversations. Instead of asking, "Did you get an A?" parents need to ask, "What experience today built your ability to lead, adapt, or communicate?" You prioritize stories of navigating conflict over stories of acing a standardized test.
Our focus list specifically asks us to list 3 ways parents can actively help their children develop adaptability and professional resilience. Let's give them the exact playbook. What is tip number 1?
Tip number 1, actively encourage low-stakes failure. Support your child in pursuing projects where they are not naturally gifted and force them to experience the frustration of being bad at something.
Separating self-worth from immediate success. What is tip number 2?
Tip number 2, foster intellectual autonomy. When your teenager is having a meltdown over a broken coding project, your instinct is to swoop in and give them the answer. Do not do it. Ask them, what are 3 alternative frameworks you could use to figure this out?
Force them to build resourcefulness. And tip number 3.
Tip number 3, deliberately expose them to ambiguous environments. Encourage them to organize a community event or volunteer in a chaotic environment where there is no syllabus and no designated right answer.
Okay, I had to play devil's advocate for the parents listening. It is terrifying to tell a parent to deprioritize a GPA. College admissions are brutally competitive. Telling a parent to loosen their grip on the grades feels like telling them to take their hands off the steering wheel.
It is a profound fear, and we need to validate it completely. We are not advocating for academic self-sabotage. You need a baseline of competence. But holding onto the old wheel will drive them off a cliff in 2026.
Winning the college admissions game is a Pyrrhic victory if your child graduates with zero of the hybrid human capabilities that the market is actually paying for.
Exactly.
Let's shift to the counselors. They need to integrate capability assessments alongside traditional career interest inventories.
Right, moving from matching interests to actively prescribing high-friction projects to strengthen a student's weak points.
And finally, the students themselves. The mandate is, don't wait for the market to hand you a path. Actively build one. Take assessments, start video challenges, record pitches. But crucially, our outline requires us to describe how students can frame past failures as evidence of professional growth and resilience.
This is a vital mechanic to master. When a hiring manager asks, "Tell me about a time you failed," do not offer a fake strength like, "I work too hard."
Right, that shows zero self-awareness.
Exactly. Use a specific structure. First, describe a real scenario where you took a calculated risk that fell apart. Second, articulate exactly where the execution failed. And third, detail the specific mental model you permanently altered because of that failure.
You explicitly frame the failure not as a humiliating defeat, but as the mandatory tuition you paid to acquire permanent upgrade in your professional judgment.
Failure as tuition, yes.
And that ties into the last requirement. Outline how students can identify their unique human value against AI competition.
You find your unique human value by hunting for the human friction points in a business process. Misaligned incentives, emotional resistance to change, lack of trust. Only a highly attuned human can navigate that. If you can show you designed a framework that forced two angry departments to align, you've demonstrated capability no software will ever replicate.
We have covered an astronomical amount of ground today, from the scary data of vanishing traditional roles to the realization that employers are just seeking new hybrid skills.
And we walked through the actionable steps of building apprenticeships, evidence-based portfolios, and an entrepreneurial mindset.
I want to give a final reminder to you, listener, that the power is entirely in your hands. AI hasn't removed human value, it has simply raised the bar for proving it.
And looking ahead, the WEF says the two fastest-growing skills across every industry are adaptability and resilience. This raises an important question to mull over. If AI can eventually mimic even our analytical problem-solving, then your ultimate human edge won't be your ability to solve a problem, but your emotional resilience in surviving the failure of your first attempt.
Are you building a resume of successes or a portfolio of resilience? That is a provocative thought. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. I enthusiastically invite you to explore these concepts further, start building that portfolio today, and look out for our next deep dive. Keep leaning into the friction, and we'll see you next time.